All right. Thanks for checking in with us as we talk more NFL on the Our Lads Football Network, OFN Today, with Ryan Dunleavy of the New York Post. How's it going, Ryan?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Long
Uh,
time no talk.
yeah, we just recorded the Rutgers football report. So we're all excited about Rutgers and Penn State. No one else is. But you have to be a Rutgers fan. Okay.
Here now I look different, right? Now I look like, hey, he didn't just record one show and now it's the other. Look, it's a
Yeah,
totally
I
new
should
one.
talk. Yeah, exactly. You should have put that on when you made your prediction.
Yeah.
All right, so the NFL enters Week 11, and New England and Atlanta will face off tonight in Atlanta. Short week on Thursday nights, even though that has not affected teams, which is kind of weird. Matter of fact, I was taking a look at some of the trends over the last couple of years for Thursday night football. Now, the home team is just 5-5 this year, straight up, and 4-6 against the spread on Thursday Night Football. Last year, the road team won 9 of 14 and covered 11 of 14 on Thursday Night Football. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, I thought it was supposed to be really hard for NFL teams to not only prepare on a short week, but to have to travel on a short week.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
and that'll probably continue with the Patriots the way they're
Yeah.
playing.
I mean, I think it goes to my overall theory of like, I just think right now in the NFL, and obviously, I don't have a great betting record this year like I did last year, but I think it just goes to my overall theory in the NFL, which is that right now there's a big difference between good teams and bad teams. And the Patriots are a good team and the Falcons are a bad team. So to me, that's a no-brainer that I would pick the Patriots with a less than 7 point spread.
Yeah, the only thing is what's happened in the NFL the last couple of weeks. Anything can happen in the NFL, not just the wins and losses, but the results. You know, I mean, seeing the Patriots just destroy Cleveland after Cleveland had destroyed Cincinnati.
So, correct. And I get that that's the theory, right? That anything, the Jaguars beat the Bills, but like 8 times out of 9, the Bills destroyed the Texans. They destroyed the Jets.
Sure.
8 times out of 9, they're going to beat the really bad team. It's not like this happens like, it happens once a week to one team, basically, or twice a week to twice a week to two teams. It's not like it just keeps happening over and all. Yeah, what was the big ups? What were the two big upsets last week? It's escaping me. Oh, the Washington beat the Bucks, and
Not only beat them by double digits.
yeah, Washington beat the Bucks, and
Well,
the
Carolina beat Arizona.
yeah,
That was a
and
9-point spread, a 7-point spread.
correct. Those were the two big upsets. And you're like, oh wow, anything can happen. Except the Falcons pounded the Cowboys beat the Falcons by 40, and the Bills beat the Jets by 40.
And
So
Cleveland and the Patriots clobbered the Browns. Yeah.
correct. So like, it's a nice theory, but more to me, more often than not, the good teams are going to not just beat the bad teams; they're going to clobber them.
Well, the thing though that has been different this season has been the continuous run of not winning necessarily, but just covering. The
Correct.
Dogs have owned
Correct.
the NFL this season. The
And that's why I have
last,
a losing record.
yes, I mean by 23. So if you've just taken the Dogs this season, you're 85-62-1 if you take them every game. And the last 3 weeks alone, just the favorite has won 13, lost 28. 13-28 in the last 3 weeks. If you bet on the favorite,
Yep.
you're getting destroyed. So
Which is what I usually do.
yeah, which is why you had a bad week last week. But you know what I'm thinking about is, and I was looking at Tampa Bay as a good example, is that last season Tampa Bay had that run and games 9, 11, and 12, and they had a blowout against Carolina in there, but they lost 9, 11, and 12. And everybody just kind of, that's not going to work out. Remember, even before that, it was Tom Brady doesn't know, he can't even count 4 downs against Chicago. It was, and then all of a sudden, he didn't lose the game the rest of the season. So I think it's that we're in that middle of the season blues in the NFL, where it's like kind of getting a little bit stale in a way, and
I
there's
believe
injuries and buys, but in the next couple of weeks, the better teams, I think the favorites, I would be surprised if this dog stuff continues over the last month of the season.
I was just gonna say it when you were giving me the 23 games under 500. I would have said it. To me, that sounds like the right time to double down on the favorites.
Yeah. So now when that happens, whether or not it's going to start this week or next week, we'll see. Big signings this week. Last week we talked about where OBJ was going to go. So he goes to the Rams, and that kind of surprised me.
No, I said it on this show. It shouldn't have surprised you.
Well, I know it was a contending team, but it was like, why go to a team
because
where
I told you last week on this show, I think, that he's always wanted to go to the Rams. It's where he always wanted to play. He lives in LA in the offseason. He has an infatuation with Sean McVay. I was not surprised at all. I actually was kicking I think I said it on the show pretty clearly. I was actually kicking myself for not writing it for the post. I was not surprised at all that he wound up in LA. Absolutely.
I just don't think it's a good fit, but I think it's about this year alone. Now, maybe like you said, maybe if things go well and he's not interference in the locker room, then maybe because he likes the coach and he likes LA, maybe he stays there. Who knows? I don't know if it's going to work out. Then all of a sudden, Rashawn Woods gets hurt the same week and is out for the year. What is that about?
Robert Woods.
Robert Woods, yes. I mean, how crazy is that happening in the same, 48-hour period?
Yep.
That's crazy. And then they go out and lay a clunker against San Francisco, which was, again, not a big surprise considering all the upsets. That was another upset this past week. Probably also mostly because of the way that the Rams just didn't look like they were ever in the game.
Matthew Stafford's looked a lot like a guy who went 9-7 a lot with the Lions. That the last couple of weeks he has gone from MVP candidate to turnover machine, and you start to wonder, okay, maybe Matthew Stafford is who Matthew Stafford is. Maybe he's a really good quarterback who isn't a 14-2 regular season Super Bowl championship quarterback.
I haven't looked at the percentages, but the Rams, one of the things they still have to make sure that they do is they have to run the football. They have to be a balanced football team. And the defense, again, I just think the defense, we've said this several times this year, it's just not the same defense as last year. And now, yes, they got Von Miller now, so maybe that will ramp up their defense in due time. But they lost their hot coordinator, and I just don't think they have that same invincibility that it seemed like they had last year. So we'll see. There's still more than enough games to correct the issue. The other big signing, which was probably a bigger signing, now that we saw the effect in such limited action, was Cam Newton going to Carolina, which to me, because I hadn't been paying attention to Carolina's, all right, are they going to be looking to sign Cam Newton? It was you would think it's a logical situation. And then when it happened, it was like, yeah, it's very smart. That's a nice signing. We know Carolina's biggest issue is the quarterbacks. So they don't have to wait now to 2022. They could bring Cam in and save the season. So much so, I think Carolina is going to go to the postseason now.
I do not. I watched them play against the Giants. I do not think they're going to go to the postseason. Cam played it was a nice story, a nice emotional return to a place where he's had his best years. He gets another chance in the NFL. Let's call how many snaps did he have in the game? 10, 12? I know he threw 4 passes. Sure. Yeah, I mean, now they're going to try to make him the full-time starter again. I think we saw last year with New England, that's not really going to work. He's not really at that level anymore. So I'm not surprised that the Colt McCoy-led Cardinals ran into an emotional buzzsaw against the Panthers. But for me to think that they're going to get to 9 wins, 10 wins because of it, I can't see it. No, I
Well,
don't. I
here's
don't.
the
I don't.
difference:
I
is
don't see
that
Cam lifting them up. He's going to want to do more than they want him to do, which is, I think, but he still thinks of himself as a superhero. They're looking for more of a game manager. I just don't think it'll work.
well, look, there's no doubt that if he wants to, and look, he's not the one calling the plays, but if he decides to take matters into his own hands and he's checking out a run plays and he's throwing the ball too much, and okay, I agree with you, but if he settles into the system, and when you have an opportunity to go, okay, it's either going to be me or Christian McCaffrey. Which way are you going? That's going to cause defenses problems. There's just no question about that. The other thing, he did not have in New England last year. He did not have two downfield passing threats that have not been able to take off this season because of Sam Darnold. The one thing that Cam Newton can still do is throw accurate, deep passes. Now, whether or not he can work under the system now and understand this isn't 5 years ago. You are not the leader of this franchise. That is yet to be seen. But look, if they're going to do it, they're going to do it now. They play Washington, Miami, by Atlanta. If they're going to make the run, they have to win all 3 games. So, 2-1, maybe, with, of course, that 7th seed, maybe the 6th seed in the NFC being pretty much still wide open, especially with the Saints losing last week. Okay, speaking of the Saints, we both like them this week against Philadelphia. And I like them so much that they're my 5-star pick against the Saints. I looked at this, and we talk all the time about Sean Payton when they lose. I'm sitting on a 20-point lead with Tennessee as my 3-star, my 5-star, given 3 last week, and I lose with Tennessee winning. I mean, that was a killer for me. But it just shows you that Sean Payton, even though they didn't win, they came back, they made it close, and it with no Alvin Kamara. Kamara will be back this week. Philly, give it to Nick Sirianni. I think the Eagles have played a lot better in a very short period of time than I thought that they would. There's a long way to go this season. I'm not trying to make Hurts to be anything special, but they're definitely playing better than they have most of the season, which is why they're the favorite. But I think people just forget. This is New Orleans. This is Sean Payton. This is Allen, who's a very good defensive coordinator. This is one of the best defenses in the league. And I think they're going to find a way to in a huge season game situation for the Saints. They got to play Buffalo on Thanksgiving next week, on Thursday, and they don't want to go in there on a 3-game losing streak.
Correct. Yeah, I agree with everything you just said there. Again, my pick is more anti-Eagle than it is pro-Saint. I agree with everything you just said, and I think Trevor Siemian maybe doesn't get enough credit as a guy who can win you football games. And I wouldn't want him to be. I wouldn't sign him to a contract to be my starter, but he can win football games. I'm stunned the Eagles are a favorite even at home in this game. To me feels like an overreaction to their fluky win against Denver last week. To me, it's Saints, better team, better coach, probably even quarterbacks, better playmakers. To me, the Saints win the game by 7 points.
And it took half a season, but this is what happens with rookies. But boy, is Devonta Smith going to be good? You know, there was still early on. You were wondering, well, is that Heisman wide receiver thing? But he's going to be good. He's going to be special
as long as he stays healthy.
Yes,
he'll be.
But here's the difference.
The body type scares me, but
yes,
as long as he stays healthy, he's going to be excellent. Yep.
Now here's the difference in this game. I don't know if you remember.
Miami gets a lot of flack for picking Tua over Herbert, and rightfully so. That looks like it's going to be an atrocious decision, and nothing's as bad as picking the wrong quarterback. But I think they might also pick the wrong receiver. I think picking Jalen Waddle over Devonta Smith might come back.
Yes, because you get the feel. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I was not a Waddle guy. To me, I think Waddle is like Henry Ruggs. I think he's a nice deep threat. I think he could be a nice complementary number two, but he's not a number one. And Devonta Smith has got number one capability, no question. Um, Now let's keep in mind last year the Saints were riding a 9-game winning streak when they went into Philadelphia as a 6-point favorite and lost to the Eagles. But the difference is now Breeze was not in that game, but the difference is the Eagles are the favorite now. And the Eagles are 5-13-1 in their last 19 as a home favorite against the spread. That's bad. And by the way, the Saints have covered all 4 this year as a dog with 3 outright wins.
This is the first time I really kind of use those trends to my advantage. First time I'm picking some underdogs, really. I felt like going through this week, there were some teams that were underdogs that should have been favorites and some teams that were underdogs where the spreads were just too high.
Hey, I like the reunion with Washington because not only is Ron Rivera returning to Carolina for the first time, lost to the Panthers at home last year, but this is going under the radar. Heineke made his first career start with Carolina back in, 2018? He lost the game. So he's a former Panther too, and he had a huge game. I just look at this one of those situations to me that when you beat the defending Super Bowl champs and you put everything into the game and everything goes right and you look awesome and you're not a very good football team, that team usually doesn't come back and play very well the next week. It's just a matter of fact, if one of the trends in the Playbook newsletter, teams that pull off upsets over defending Super Bowl champs by 10 points or more, we'll throw that in there too, are 3-15-1 against the spread when they take on basically a good team the next week, which is a team with a 400 or better winning percentage. So I'm not surprised by that.
That goes back to what? Super Bowl I, probably?
That goes back to the 1956 championship game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what that means.
Basically, what it means is exactly what we kind of figured anyway. It's going to be very hard for a team to come back after pulling that kind of upset off. And Carolina also gets, we'll see how they react to Cam Newton. I mean, I don't know how the fan base treated Cam when he left, but I'm sure most of them are going to treat him well. You agree?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, absolutely. For them, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. For them, it's like a hero coming home. Absolutely.
Yeah. Big game this week, Dallas and Kansas City. And I like the Cowboys in this one. And you did not pick this game, correct? Officially. So correct. Were you leaning towards one team?
The Chiefs.
Who at this point in time, with the Raiders and the Broncos and the Chargers playing the way that they are.
You missed your chance, everybody. You missed your chance. You had a chance to bury the bully, and you missed it. And you look up, and the Chiefs have been sputtering through half the season, and they're still in first place in the AFC West. Good night.
Yeah. And the team that probably disappoints me more, to tell you the truth, is the Chargers, because they haven't had any turmoil. They've got a stud quarterback.
Yep. I agree. They should be much better than they are.
So we'll see how that goes. I like Dallas, though, in this matchup, but this is going to tell us a lot about whether the Chiefs are just bullies of the AFC West and they're not really going to be the team that you should be worrying about for a Super Bowl title. And then on Dallas's side, they've already played a couple of pretty good games this year, including the first game at Tampa Bay, that prove whether or not they are for real. And I think this puts the stamp on it. If the Cowboys win this football game, that this is a true Super Bowl contender.
Correct. Yep. And the rest of their schedule's fairly easy. So if they win this game, don't sleep on the Cowboys as a potential 1 seed in the NFC.
I had them as my 2 seed, and I was back and forth with the Packers because of what you just said. They get the NFC East, And I don't know if they're going to lose a game against all those teams.
I don't think they will.
Yeah. Arizona Seattle's an interesting game because we don't know about Murray. And it looks
sounds like it sounds like he's going to play.
Yeah. So whether he plays this week or not.
Cole McCoy's hurt too.
So he better play, or else this is a big loss. So here's one that I think you'll agree with. Russell Wilson is 21-3 when he plays a home game following a loss.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, that and he did not look good last week, which is not a surprise. We talked a little bit about that last week. I think I talked about that with Mark Lawrence. That is just Lambeau is a terrible place for Russell Wilson over his career, and then he was coming off the injury and the time off. It was, and that's why I like the Packers big last week. But I'm willing to look past that and say now he's got the game under his belt. The real Russell Wilson will show up this week.
That's exactly how I feel about it. I put them in the playoffs, didn't I? Or did I?
You did, and then you switched out with the Saints.
I bumped them out. Yeah, that's how I feel. I think they're gonna get it going, but I think their hole might just have been too big. Look, last week Russell Wilson didn't play well. My takeaway from watching that game, and I saw most of that game because the Giants were on a bye week, so I watched most of that game live. I would say my big takeaway from that game was how good the Packers defense was.
Yes.
And at not full strength. That is what I think has been holding the Packers back from making the Super Bowl since they won their one under Rodgers 10 years ago.
Yep.
Is the defense. And to me, that looked like a Super Bowl caliber defense. That came out of that thinking much more, wow, the Packers defense, more than, oh God, the Seahawks are done. They're finished.
Sure.
I think they'll make a run. I just think their hole might be too big.
Well, if you look at Seattle, it's all same thing. As I was like, wow, did the bye help Seattle and their defense? Did they do something defensively? Because we know if they can play defensively like that every week, then they're also going to be able to make a run. And what helps Seattle out is, unlike some of the other teams, like say in the AFC that have murderous schedules, Seattle's the opposite. I love Seattle's schedule to get back into this because they have to play Washington, they play Houston, they play Chicago, they play Detroit, they get San Francisco at home. They've got a lot of winnable games there that if they can get this one to get it started, this is definitely a team that could be 500 in a month. So, and 500 probably gets you into the playoffs in the NFC. One other game I wanted to talk about, Pittsburgh LA. And I know that you have Pittsburgh, and I can completely understand why Pittsburgh's one of your upsets this week. The other one's Jacksonville, and I like Jacksonville too, but I figured you picked them as the upset, so that's cool. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And I normally would not ever take LA in a situation like this over Pittsburgh, giving 5. But why I will? No J.J. Watt. I will put my money where my mouth is. TJ Watt. I will put my money where my mouth is. And I believe he is just as important as a quarterback. And by the way, he missed one game this year, and he is an Iron Man. He plays a lot. And the game was the Bengal game when they lost 24-10. He is that important to this team. It looks like Roethlisberger's probably going to play unless there's a setback. But I think Watt is such a big part, and the Chargers need a win so desperately that I'm going to go ahead and take the Chargers.
I picked this game strictly on the coaches. I just feel like this is a game LA's underachieved. Pittsburgh's probably overachieved the last couple weeks. They've saved their season a little bit here the last couple weeks. I wrote them off once already. Now they're probably one of the, I don't know. I think I have them in my playoffs in the AFC. Like the AFC North is so scrambled. I picked.
No, actually, you do not have Pittsburgh in the playoffs right now.
I went with the Browns.
Yes,
I was
and the Chargers.
I was agonizing over the Browns and the Steelers for the last spot. And so in this game, yeah, I have the Chargers in because I think they're one of the most talented teams. But head to head, I went with the Steelers in this game because I think this is a game where Mike Tomlin just says to Brandon Staley, "Hey, you've got promise, kid, but I'm about to coach circles around you," and that's why I picked this game up.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's always good in this spot. They're 14-5-1 in their last 20 as a road dog
Yeah,
against the spread.
this is a Mike Tomlin special. That's what this is.
The other thing too is schedule, and we talked about it last week. Pittsburgh and Baltimore have murderous schedules, which is the reason why I'm not having either in the playoffs.
Correct. That's one of the reasons why I left Pittsburgh out. When I ultimately went down to the 7th seed and I was Cleveland or Pittsburgh, the schedule. Now that you remind me of that, that's what it was. The schedule was my tiebreaker with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, because
I think they win this week and then go into a slump.
Yeah, because the Chargers, they get to play Denver, the Giants, Houston, Denver again, Vegas. These are all winnable games for the Chargers. Where Pittsburgh, we said it last week, the toughest opponent they have left, the easiest opponent they have left is Minnesota. I think that's, we said that last week because they play Minnesota in a few weeks. They have a very, very tough schedule. And I know we didn't have much time to talk about it, and I wasn't going to talk about it too much, but do you see now why I kind of felt the beginning of the season about Baltimore? There's something wrong with them. And when you have Stanley out and you got, you look at their defense, and statistically they're middle of the road, but they're not sacking the quarterback. They're not intercepting passes. So the defense is doing nothing to help them. They're not doing the normal, we're going to blitz you, we're going to create havoc, we're going to get the easy, scores and set you up in great position. So the defense is not helping Lamar Jackson out this year. And that loss to Miami that was brutal.
Who wins they got zero blitz. That's what they did, basically. We talked a lot on this show about how teams had a blueprint for the Chiefs: cover 2, drop 2 safeties, make them go underneath and show patience. Well, now the Dolphins gave everybody a Lamar Jackson blueprint of blitz, play your corners if you can, play your corners, man-to-man coverage, blitz, and make him get rid of the ball. And when you blitz, seal off the edge so he can't run around you. And that is now the new blueprint you're going to see everybody use against the Ravens. So give me your 1, 2, 3, 4. How does the AFC North finish?
I'm going to go Cleveland.
Who's in last right now?
Okay. Tell you the truth, I'm going to say today, unless it changes, could change, because this division could change every week.
Of course.
Today, I'm going to say Baltimore.
Cleveland, then Baltimore?
No. You said who was going to be in last.
No, I'm saying 1, 2, 3, 4. Give them to me. Just who
Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Baltimore.
Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. So you have Baltimore
probably separated by a game.
So you have the last place team finishing first and the first place team finishing last.
Yes, that's how crazy I think this division is. Yes,
that's pretty good. Yeah, I would go Baltimore, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati.
Yeah, because you have Cleveland and Baltimore in, and I have Cleveland and Cincinnati in. So we have not both given up on Cleveland yet. And I can't give up. I don't know I don't understand Cleveland. I don't. And that's why I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt until Nick Chubb comes back and Kareem Hunt comes back.
Right.
And then they're back to being
their bread and butter.
Yeah.
They're missing. Yeah.
And I think once that happens, then I think we'll see the real Cleveland Brown team. And I talked obviously every week with Evan Kazar about the Patriots. So I don't spend a lot of time talking about them on this show, but and we'll talk more maybe in the coming weeks about the rookie quarterback situation. But this is not a surprise on this channel. We've talked about it since he was drafted. Even before he was drafted, that Mac Jones was the perfect quarterback for New England, that he was going to have more success early on than any other rookie quarterback because of the system and the player he is. So everybody's going crazy about, oh, you missed out on Mac Jones and everyone else stinks and Mac Jones is going to be the great. That's just not going to happen. I still think this class I still like all these quarterbacks in this class. It's just that Mac Jones was the perfect fit for the perfect staff, and it was just perfect. I don't think his ceiling is higher than two or three of these other quarterbacks in time, but he's just a really good quarterback for the Patriots, and he's gonna be good for a long time.
Agreed.
So.
Yep.
All right, that is going to wrap it up. So, Ryan, you working on anything? I know you're not going to Tampa to cover the Giant game.
I'm not. No, I'm not. I got a cool story that'll probably launch sometime next week. A very fan-related story that I think people will enjoy on how to deal with some of the misery if you're a Jets fan or a Giants fan. I called some fans who are experts in misery and no, not that. No, some fans who are experts in misery and got their opinions on how to survive the tough times. So.
Okay. Don't forget next week, Thanksgiving Day games. We get to see the Bears and Detroit. We always love those games. The Detroit games are always just, what are they doing? Vegas and the Cowboys could be good if Vegas wins this week.
That's fun.
And Buffalo and New Orleans is an awesome one. I wish that wasn't the night game.
Yeah, well, they always put the best one at night.
Yeah. So. I mean, especially on Thanksgiving, a lot of people are probably going to be asleep by halftime.
Except for the year it was Giants-Washington at night. That was that was a stinker.
Oh, okay. So at least there's one really, really good matchup potentially with the Vegas-Dallas one, also pretty good. By the way, Cleveland at Baltimore, Sunday Night Football next week. Rams at the Packers next week. We'll find out about the Patriots next week when they host Tennessee. And I should have said Pittsburgh and Cincinnati also. The AFC North begins, one of many. Yeah, they're going to be battling each other for supremacy in the AFC North starting next week when Pittsburgh travels to Cincinnati as well. All right, Ryan, appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next week.
Sounds good.
We are back talking college football with Marc Lawrence at PlaybookSports.com, handicapping games for Week 12. Okay, let's get right into it. We're not going to talk about any SEC games this week, but just keep in mind if Alabama beats Arkansas, then they clinch the championship game matchup with Georgia. So Alabama, Georgia, what do you think the odds are going to be in that game?
Well, the funny thing you mentioned there is it will be the first time in 158 games that Alabama will be a dog. The last time they
158?
Yes.
Wow.
The last time they were a dog, they took one from Georgia.
One.
And they beat Georgia 38-10 in that game.
Okay.
Yeah, so but right now, if they were to play this weekend, you would see anywhere from 2 to 3, right? Just depending upon what condition they're in going into that game.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's the only thing about Georgia right now is are they going to be able to handle the pressure of being favored to beat Alabama undefeated? Talent-wise, it's Georgia and everybody else. That's just the way Georgia's playing this year. They're just so much better than everybody else.
Well, the funny thing is that Georgia-Alabama Southeast Conference Championship game will be a lot better than some of the matchups in the major bowls and maybe even some of the college football playoffs.
Alabama's what, second in the rankings?
Second in the rankings.
So if Georgia loses, we know both teams will be in the playoffs. But if Alabama loses, I don't want to see them in the playoffs with 2 losses. I'm sorry. They better not be in the playoffs with 2 losses.
There'll be no excuses. They will not be in there. Yeah. 2 losses, you're forbidden, and it won't happen.
Okay, Big Ten. Now let's go and talk about the big one of the Big Ten is Ohio State and Michigan State. And I was a little bit surprised to see the line start off at 20. It's down to 19. I thought it would be more like 15 or 16 at the highest. I'm definitely jumping all over Michigan State because I think the points are too much. There's just total disrespect for Michigan State. This is the perfect spot for the Spartans. They've won and covered all 3 games as a dog this year. And Ohio State is 1-9 against the spread in their last 10 before they play Michigan. So, Ohio State's probably going to win the game, but I do not think this is going to be like a 24-0 30-point game. The odds are almost similar to Purdue, and I know Purdue beat Michigan State, but they're not better than Michigan State. I'm just surprised that the odds are the way they are.
That's exactly where I was going to come from. These odds here in this game are almost parallel to what it was with Purdue, and Michigan State is not parallel with Purdue. The reason the line is what it is because the odds makers are more than odds makers are handicappers, and as they handicap the matchups, they get into the numbers and into the stats of these football teams, and they see a glaring difference defensively between these two teams. Michigan State is not a good defensive team, even close. They're terrible, 444 yards a game. Buckeyes own a huge disparity in that difference there. That's one thing, and they couldn't let Ohio State go out cheaply with this because that the sharps, the big bettors would come to Ohio State because of that matchup, that statistical matchup. So they had to put a number up there. Now I also thought it was a little bit high, just if for no other reason, just given the fact that Ohio State has Michigan on deck next week. And while the Buckeyes are getting their act together, they're playing as well as any team arguably in the country right now. It's still Michigan up next for Ohio State, where they've lost 7 times in a row to the money in games before taking on the Wolverines. So I would, if I'm Mel Tucker, Michigan State, I'm telling these guys all about the Rodney Dangerfield card here, guys. I mean, my goodness, we're ranked 7th in the college football playoff, and we're taking 20 points.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I think you have to play a game at a certain number. It's all about situations first, and second, it's about value. There is no value to Ohio State, none whatsoever in this game. It's to the point where you have to start making a case for Michigan State, and you can make that small case. I'm with you. I'll take the points with the Spartans in this contest.
Now, I'm going to have an upset in the Big Ten as well, a smaller upset than Michigan State, and I just feel that there's a chance here for Nebraska to pull off the upset against Wisconsin because they haven't had that big win yet this season, and this is their chance. I think where they have Iowa next, but if they don't beat Wisconsin, that game doesn't really mean much for Iowa. So this is the game, and this would be a perfect opportunity for the players to show their support for Frost, who got the contract extension, and I'm happy that Scott Frost did get the extension. It looked like there was no way he was coming back. But the fact that they played really hard against Nebraska and have played very hard in all of their losses this year, I think is definitely a good sign. I mean, they have not been blown out by anybody. Matter of fact, all 7 losses this season by 9 points or less, and they're getting 9.5. So definitely like the points, and I figure, hey, why not go with the money line, which is close to 3-1. By the way, my cousin is a big Nebraska fan, and he gave the thumbs up to the Scott Frost extension. So that just shows you there are Nebraska fans who like the fact that, look, Frost, if he was not that kind of cult figure in Nebraska, being the former quarterback and all, he would have been fired already. But that's the whole idea about these guys, that these coaches that come back home and coach for their team. They kind of, if they're struggling a little bit, they're going to get a little extra time to kind of figure things out. So, yeah, look, Wisconsin's been dominating teams lately, but they haven't really played anybody that good. I think this is a really tough matchup for Wisconsin, so I'm going to go ahead and roll the dice that Nebraska pulls off the upset.
I agree. I think, number one, I think the players are thrilled that Scott Frost is coming back because they were recruited by Scott Frost. They want to play for this guy. And I think it was a good move on Nebraska's part because while they didn't meet expectations, they didn't play poorly. They lost a lot of close football games. They'll maybe eventually learn to win those football games, those close call games. And when they do, it will be a different story. And this Scott Frost talk will all be in the rearview mirror. Wisconsin is playing really good football now, arguably as good as anybody in the Big Ten Conference. But they also have an offense that tends to disappear at times. And you're putting 2 pretty good defensive teams in a matchup like this here.
Yep.
I got to play Nebraska plus the points. I think they come to play again for Scott Frost, not to save his job, but because they're thrilled that he's coming back.
Okay, let's now move over. And again, if Michigan beats Maryland, and Ohio State wins, then the Michigan-Ohio State game, believe it or not, will be for the Big Ten championship and to be in the Big Ten championship game, and more than likely a playoff invite for if they can win the Big Ten championship game. So we'll see if Michigan can avoid some sort of big choke job at Maryland. As a fan, This is it. They better get through. All right. So the ACC, we'll talk about that game definitely next week. Okay. The ACC, excuse me, the Big 12 I was talking about. Now, Iowa State, Oklahoma. I just can't figure Iowa State out this year at all. I really can't. I mean, the Texas Tech loss, I get it. You give up a 62-yard field goal. These college kickers nowadays, 5 years from now, they're going to be kicking 70-yard field goals. Just amazing. The power in these legs nowadays. But anyway, they should never have been in that spot against Texas Tech. They were way behind. This was the most talented team Campbell ever had, and it doesn't look like there's a chance at all that he's a small chance that he can get to the Big 12 championship game, but it just doesn't look good. I'm taking Iowa State in this game just because this is like their championship. This is it. They lost the championship game last year to Oklahoma. And to tell you the truth, I'm not all that impressed with Oklahoma either. Now they're juggling quarterbacks. I guess Rattler will probably get to start this week. So I'll take Iowa State and the 4, but not a big game for me.
I like Iowa State pretty good in this game for a couple of reasons. Number one, a lot more was expected from this team. It's still the same talent on this team that was there to begin the season. And the games that they have not shown up in have been against lesser opposition. Oklahoma is not lesser opposition. They're going to get Iowa State's full attention in this football game. The other, you've got a big bubble burst against Oklahoma here. And we talk about it oftentimes. When you go 7-0 or better, you lose your first game as a favorite, you come back as a favorite. These teams flat out don't get back up off the mat. That's the case here for Oklahoma in this contest. And who do they have to take down? An Iowa State football team that just got upset last week. So they're going to want to come with a little bit of vengeance in their eyes here as well. A huge Matt Campbell fan am I, and I think this is an ideal spot for him to send Oklahoma to their second loss in a row. I think they upset the Sooners in this game.
And I'll tell you, I don't know what his contract situation is, and nowadays it doesn't really matter. Buyouts happen all the time. But I wouldn't be surprised if this was it for Campbell, because this was his best team. A lot of these guys are now going to go. And if you're thinking of leaving, see, I think maybe he decided to come back. He wasn't sure about the right job. And I got my best team. Maybe I could go to the playoffs. Who knows? Win a national championship. He may be rethinking this now, if he was even thinking about it. Hey, I couldn't even get to my best team. So maybe a better job offer comes along, and this could be it for him. Iowa State has covered 17 of the last 23 games as a dog. Pretty good.
That's pretty nice. That's a Matt Campbell trait as well. And to follow up on your thought about Matt Campbell maybe saying adios to Iowa State, if he does go anywhere, I think it will be to the National Football League.
Yes.
Much like Matt Rule did, okay?
Yes, agreed.
I think an NFL team will see the talent in him. He's young enough to relate to the players and to do his thing. So that's where he'll be headed. I don't think there's much of a forward move. Yes, he can go to LSU or, some big-name schools, but that's not him, okay? No. So if he does move, expect to see him in the National Football League.
Yeah. Nobody wants to see him in USC or anything like that.
No.
Okay, the other Big 12 game, and I'm just going to keep riding Oklahoma State. I don't think they're getting any love.
Right.
They're a 10.5-point favorite, and all they do is win and win big. They have covered 8 straight on the season. So it's not like, hey, they've covered 8 straight like you were talking about with Ohio State. Let's inflate the line. 10 points. Okay. Texas Tech just upset Iowa State on a 62-yard field goal. Do you think that they're not coming down to earth after that win? So come on. I just don't see it. This is a huge game for Oklahoma State. They understand what's at stake. They're in control of their destiny to get and win the Big 12 championship game, and they've won their last 3 by 142-23.
Yeah, they're cooking right now. And in fact, if you take a look at the teams in the college football playoff rankings and you wanted to buy a future, okay, on a team to make the Final Four, and you obviously there's no value in playing Georgia to make the Final Four, Ohio State, even Alabama, because you're going to be playing even money or laying odds. But if you wanted to get some serious money back the other way on a team that could sneak through and get into the Final Four, it would be Oklahoma State. This football team plays ferocious defense, the best in the Big 12 conference. And they still have a path to get to to the Final Four. They only have one loss in the season. If they win out, they take Oklahoma, or if it's Oklahoma in the championship game, down. They'll be a one-loss team from the Big 12 with a lot of credibility, a lot of bullets in their holster here. So I'm with you. I think Oklahoma State is a real under-the-radar type team that you have to watch from this point moving forward.
Yeah, and I mean, the one loss was that very close loss to Iowa State on the road. And that's why these games do matter when it comes to how, especially when you're Oklahoma State, how does it look? And so if you're worried about giving 10, hey, Gundy knows if I have to score a couple of late touchdowns to inflate the score, then that's what I got to do. So,
and what helps Oklahoma State's chances is if Iowa State takes out Oklahoma this week, because that loss becomes tethered a little bit. It's not that bad of a loss with Iowa State, picking up that win that way. So keep an eye out on the Cowboys here. I think they're a real sleeper team. I agree with you.
Honestly, and I know they've had a lot of sexier teams because of the offense that they've had in this conference and Gundy's had. I think this is his best team.
I think it is too, because they're well-rounded, offensively and defensively, and they're not intimidated by anybody here either. So, they're a team that nobody in the Big 12 is going to want to play moving forward.
Okay, now Pac-12, I have 3 games on the list, and we're going to start. The first one is the big one, and that is Oregon against Utah. And I was, a little surprised that Utah was the favorite, just a little bit. Because of the history of Oregon and Utah, I figured maybe at the worst it'd be Pick'em. But Utah, I'm not complaining about it like it's a missed number. But look, Utah's at home. They're having a great season. I've backed them ever since Rising. We've talked about them every week, and they've covered. So I didn't take them last week against Arizona. That was an inflated line anyway. But when it's mattered, they've done their job. But they're now favored to beat the big boys, Oregon. And this is something that they're not very good at. Matter of fact, the last time they played, it was the 19 championship game, and Utah was favorite. And who won? Oregon. So I just think this is a great spot for Cristobal. He loves these spots. It's the best spots for him. Not good for Winningham. And I just think Oregon, whether they can now repeat that, beat Utah in the championship game where they're the favorite and people will expect them to, we'll get to that point in time, especially because it might mean a playoff invite at that point. But right now, the way things are, I think it's a really good spot for the Ducks.
I think it is too. You're talking taking a field goal from a team that beat Ohio State at the Horseshoe, okay? And as
they
you
can
mentioned,
play on the road.
That's
yes.
exactly right. So
they're better on the road, it seems.
In our newsletter, we called that fact out and said that anybody that can beat Ohio State at the Horseshoe, they deserve a get-out-of-jail-free card, okay? Because that's no small task doing something like that. Now you've got on the other side of the coin something you alluded to, and that's Kyle Whittingham's been a great coach, terrific for the program.
Yes.
In fact, I think he's going to ultimately end up being in the College Football Hall of Fame. He's done such a nice job with this program here. But his one Achilles heel is beating good football teams. He's really, really struggled. 10-18 to the spread against 900 better teams, and only 2-11 when he's favored in those contests. Meaning that he oftentimes does not step up in these big football games. You've got a team here in Oregon that right now sits inside the top 4 teams in the college football ranking here. They're not coming here to play this game close. They're coming here to win this football game. I'm with you. I like Oregon in the upset in this contest.
And when you flip it, Cristobal is and got this in the newsletter. 6-1 straight up and against the spread on the road versus teams with winning percentages of 700 or better. Also 32-12 straight up in games with a better record, and 3-0 straight up and against the spread when they're a dog. So good spot for Cristobal, bad spot for Whittingham. And isn't it ironic that Patterson leaves TCU? And it's like, and I'm not saying Whittingham's going anywhere, but they're the same kind of coach with the same type of programs. They both were from the little conferences as big shots, came into the big conferences, and it took them a couple of years to start playing and on the level of the big boys, but they can't get over the hump. And that's why Patterson's pretty much gone. He just can't do it. I can't get them over the top. And Whittingham, this is another opportunity. Can he get Utah over the top finally when every team is equal and there are some really good teams in the conference? We'll find out if he could pull it off. I just think Oregon's a more talented team.
And to that point, the winner of this game wins the recruiting war in the Pac-12 between these two teams, okay? The players are going to go to the team that plays in the big bowl games and gets all the television coverage. If Utah wins, it's a big feather in Whittingham's cap because it will help him maybe get to a little bit of a higher level. But Oregon is not going to want to let that happen here. They rule the Pac-12 right now as we speak. So this is a huge game from a recruiting standpoint here as well.
Okay, big rivalry game, UCLA-USC. This used to be one of those really, really big rivalry games. It hasn't been that way for a while. In one respect, I was a little bit surprised when I saw UCLA was a 3-point favorite in this game because USC has pretty much owned the series for a while. As a matter of fact, they've won 10 out of 11 at home against UCLA. Throw in the fact that USC is going to have an 18-year-old starting a quarterback for the first time in his career, and it has to do it in this series. And then the coaching advantage is obviously always going to be against USC after Helton left. But I just think that I know UCLA is not playing for anything except this is a big rivalry. They're not playing for bowl this or championship that. And that's why I'm going to take UCLA, because this is still a big rivalry game. There's not a lot, and I don't think there's a lot of pressure on them. So it's like, hey, this is a team that we have not been able to beat at USC in a long time. Once in the last 10, as I said, we have got to do it now. This is our opportunity. And I think they take advantage of it, especially since USC is 0-4. Actually, they're 0-4 against the spread in the last 4 games. The only win in that stretch was beating Arizona. But they're also 0-5 straight up, 1-4 against the spread their last 5 as a dog. And that goes on for like 5-year or 6-year kind of increments. And they're not a very good home team this year either.
No, they haven't been good, and a lot of it's because of the turmoil that's developed there because of the coaching change and now a quarterback change. But there's always a but. You got a USC football team that does not take points at home too many times at all, okay? It's a big rivalry situation here. USC has 4 wins in the season. They've got to win 2 more games to become bowl eligible. And if they lose this football game, they will not become bowl eligible, okay? Or I guess they can win their final 2 games and go 6-6 to do just that. But they're coming hard at least to earn that bowl bid.
If they play that Cal game, yeah.
If they replay the Cal game, that's not a certainty.
No.
And also, you have UCLA already bowl eligible coming into this football contest here. The last thing that gets me here is Southern Cal's played a lot better in the stats than they have on the scoreboard. They've out-yarded 7 of their 9 opponents this year. And you're also taking a look here at what I call the next man up quarterback situation for Southern Cal. With the quarterback change, I love these kids that come in and make their first starts with the team rallying around him. I realize it's a freshman who's never started a game. He may have some jitters in the contest here, but he was good enough to be recruited by Southern Cal, and now it's time to rally around the new guy. Hence, I'll take the points with Southern Cal.
Okay, now another upset, by the way, I'm going to go with is going to be in the Pac-12. Same, a little bit less than the Nebraska upset. A 2-1 money line is Colorado against Washington. I've just gone against Washington almost every week this year, and I've pretty much covered almost every week. So I just think that what I like about Colorado is they started off the season well. Then that Texas A&M game just killed them. It was like the Texas lost to Oklahoma. Like as soon as that happened and they couldn't finish the job, the season went to crap. They couldn't get good quarterback play. But finally, Brendan Lewis started to play better with the more experience that he received. Matter of fact, in his last 3 starts, his accuracy is up, and he's got a 6-0 touchdown to interception ratio. Also, not sure that this has been announced yet, but as of yesterday, they're all everything defender, linebacker Nate Landman, who missed the last 3 games when they gave up a ton of points without him, might be available for the game since his senior day, basically. And I'm going to gamble a little bit that he will play, because I think it's very important he plays. But even if he doesn't, Washington's in such a slide that I still feel pretty decent about it. But if Landman plays, I feel a lot better that Colorado will be able to upset this Washington team that, by the way, we said it last week, that we wouldn't be surprised if Jimmy Lake was fired, and he was since the last time we spoke.
Yeah, you've got not a lot of good things going on at Washington these days, aside from Jimmy Lake being gone. Go look inside of their last 2 football games that they played Washington. They've got drilled by 110 and 260 yards in the stats. That, to me, is a sign of a team that's thrown up the white flag. And I don't know what they're going to be doing laying points in this football contest for. Carl Durrell is one of the best college football home underdogs in college football. As you mentioned, last home game for the seniors going out. I think this thing smells of an upset as well. And I'm with you. I think Colorado takes Washington out.
Durrell 13-1 against the spread as a dog of less than 8.
There you go.
That's pretty
competitive
awesome.
Dog. Yep,
First time this year. So
in that role. That's nice.
In that
Good
role.
to know.
Yep. And again, so we'll find out if Landman plays or not. That's by the way, the game last week, I had Arizona State, and you know what happened at the end of that game. So the favorite by 6, and it's one of those situations where I'm like, the only way you're going to get anything is if you get the pick 6. And I'm like, I never get the pick 6. It never happens to me. It happens against me sometimes, or it happens when I don't care, but I never get the pick 6 in that spot. I got the pick 6. Then all of a sudden, with like 25 seconds left and the offense for Washington doing nothing for like a half, Herm Edwards, I guess, decides, let's just, backpedal everybody, just make sure that they don't get a quick strike, even though how are they going to get a quick strike anyway? They weren't doing anything. And he hits like 3 passes of like 25 yards, and boom, they're in the end zone. And then they cover the spread again. I'm glad I did not have big money on Arizona State. It was one of my 4 stars, but if I would have had big money, I could imagine what the sports books would have been like. You had like the Washington and Arizona State guys in that game. I could just the back and forth there would have just been comical.
Well, I can say there's 2 things I'm glad about that football game. 1, that I didn't, like you, have big money on the game, and 2, that I didn't watch it. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes that helps. Absolutely. Yes, it would.
Yeah. It would have been a little bit tough getting to sleep that night.
I lost. Okay. Yeah. But you didn't know how you lost.
Yeah.
By the way, Oregon State can clinch the North if they beat Arizona State on Saturday night. Utah beats Oregon, and Washington State loses one of their last 2 games. But then, of course, Oregon State has to beat Oregon next week. It's a lot to ask for. See, Utah winning and Oregon State winning, they're both 3-point spreads. Okay, we could see it happen. It's not crazy. But then they'd have to still beat Oregon next week at Oregon. But just keep that in mind, that Oregon said, great job by Jonathan Smith, who we've praised for the past couple of years, and they've got something going on there, and it's fun to see. So figured I'd throw that in there. All right. Next up, let's now talk about the final Power 5 game on the list, and that's Wake Forest against Clemson. Demon Deacons with their shot, just like Pitt. And it worked out for me a few weeks ago when I jumped all over Pitt in this spot. They were at home, so it helped. This is on the road. But Wake Forest can clinch the Atlantic with just 1 win in the next 2. But they don't want to go to Boston College next week with everything on the line either. That's going to be a stressful situation. They haven't played in the championship game since 2006. Now, a few things I like about this. First of all, we've talked highly about Wake this year. Secondly, you know how I feel about Clemson this year. So, and I'm still not, I'm afraid that they're back. Yes, very good defense. No question about it. That's what worries me. But offensively, they've been so bad. Throw in the fact that Justin Ross is now done for the year. Their number 1 receiver. By far their number 1 receiver. Their number 2 receiver is also out, and he only has 23 receptions. So their top wide receivers left are 2 freshmen and a tight end. So I guess Clemson can win 16-10. It's possible. I could see that happening because that's the only way I think Clemson wins. But once again, just like I said with Pitt, if Wake Forest is ever going to beat Clemson, this is your chance. don't screw it up.
Well, I'm on the other train here, side of the tracks in this football game here, and one because there is a chance that you might find Clemson playing in the ACC
That's right.
championship game. Okay,
Wake
and this
Forest
is
loses next week.
that's exactly right. Okay, take care of business here. Win next week. Let Wake Forest lose next week. We are in the championship game.
That's it.
So they're going to control half of their destiny because Wake still has to lose twice. But you've also got a team that's on the come right now, obviously. Take a look at how well they've played coming into this football game here. They're on this roll, this nice roll right now, and it's all because of the defense. Number 11 in the country, Brett Venables, does a great job. He's never let this football program disintegrate despite the fact the offense did at the beginning of the year. And you mentioned these receivers that have to come in and replace the Ross and those really, really good wide receivers.
5 stars, probably.
Yeah, right. But that's exactly where I'm going, okay? Yeah. He didn't bring him into Clemson just to fill the roster out.
No.
Okay,
No.
there's a reason. So
the
now
next wave.
Yes, the next wave. Exactly right.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ride Clemson in this football game. I think there's a lot of value, and I don't think Wake Forest has seen a defense like this thus far this football season here. So it's been a great run for Wake Forest. I've been on for a lot of their football games, but not here. I'm going to jump off the tracks because of the value and the chance that Clemson has to get back to the ACC game.
Good opportunity, too, for Sam Hartman because nobody's talking about him yet for the draft. He's not going to be one of those top guys, but he'll be a middle guy. He'll be a middle round guy. So this is a chance for him. These are the type of tapes scouts are going to look at when you're facing one of the better defenses that he's going to face all season. Quickly, in the ACC, Pitt and Virginia will be playing for the opportunity to play any other win the other division to get into the championship game. I haven't heard anything yet about Armstrong. So everybody needs to keep that in mind, that Brennan Armstrong did not play last week, which is why they scored 3 points against Notre Dame.
Exactly.
And there's still no word he's going to play yet. I think he's going to play, but I haven't heard anything yet that he will.
Well, if he doesn't play, and it means Jay Wolfel gets to start again for Virginia here, he had his chance. He was the one man up last week, okay, and he no-showed in the contest. So it's not going to help the football team at all.
No.
Pittsburgh has much higher aspirations right now. Kenny Pickett, likely a first-round pick in the National Football League. And this is their last home game for Pitt in a contest here where they can make some noise. Yeah. Pitt will be in the ACC championship game, and they're not going to let Virginia spoil that party here. I'll be on Pittsburgh, provided Brennan Armstrong is watching this game with us.
Yeah, and by the way, Pitt will be at Syracuse next week, and that's important because Syracuse at North Carolina State, if they play like they did last week, they're not going to win that game. Then it's Syracuse at home next week, needing a win to go bowling. So they are hoping that Pitt wins this week, because if Pitt wins this week, they're not playing for anything next week. And with the week after that being a championship game, I mean, that's a great spot for Syracuse if they need to get in for a bowl.
Sure. Why would Pitt show anything on film the week before a championship game when there's nothing to gain from doing just that? So I'm with you. If that all happens here, they're hoping people at Syracuse that Pitt does indeed win this football game.
And Justin Fuente out. I was very surprised, not necessarily that Fuente's out, but why would you get rid of him now? Why don't you just let him coach out the season? Did he do something seriously wrong that you couldn't let him coach out the season?
Well, there's things we don't know, and it could have to do with protecting his coaching staff as one thing. The demand might well have been that, we'll keep you for another year, but you have to let, a couple of your coaches go. And he may have been loyal. He may have said, no, I'm not doing that. If you're going to fire me, you're going to fire me now.
Yeah, we don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know behind. But all I know is he's walking away with a $10 million buyout. So
yeah, we don't feel sorry for him.
He's sleeping well at night these days, just the same.
Yeah. And you can get this upcoming trend right here in Playbook Magazine. And the reason why you need to make sure you subscribe for next year's. And that is that Georgia Tech is 6-0-1 against the spread. Actually, I should say this. Head coach, I'll say it the way I was saying it. Georgia Tech is 6-0-1 against the spread as dogs, between 10 and 20 points with Jeff Collins as their head coach. Just keep that in mind when they take on the red-hot Irish. And there are a lot of fans out there that are looking at the college football rankings going, no. There is no way Notre Dame is finding the way into the playoffs again. It ain't going to happen. I'll take a 2-loss Alabama. There's no Notre Dame. There's no chance that Notre Dame is getting into the playoffs this year. None.
Only to let everybody down again. If they do get in the playoff, right?
No, so, it's not going to happen.
I agree 100% with you.
Now, and here's one of the reasons, because as we go to the group of 5 games, Cincinnati is an 11.5-point favorite against SMU. This is one of my top picks of the week. This is not a 22-point spread anymore. Now the spread is coming down to where Cincinnati can go, oh, all right, I win by 2 touchdowns, I cover the spread. And remember last year, SMU was 5-0, and this game was at home against Cincinnati. Final score, 42-13, Cincinnati. Cincinnati they're just waiting for these types of games. They're sleepwalking the other games. Oh, what do we have to do? Okay, we got to score a touchdown late to make sure we're 2 scores up. Okay. They're just sleepwalking, doing what they have to do. They know SMU is a for real team, and it's their final home game with a lot of players on this football team that have a lot to be proud of. So I think they're going to send their teammates off feeling really good about themselves, and I have no problem giving the 11 points in this spot.
I agree 100% with you, and I think the key point is what you mentioned in the beginning. Cincinnati has been failing. They've lost 4 in a row to the number, all 4 laying chalk of 20 or more. And against football teams that are very, very difficult to get up for. So they tend to play down to that level, if you will, and hence they did play down to that level. Now SMU is going to get their attention here. And we're going to find out about what defense is all about in this football game. Sonny Dykes doesn't know how to spell the word. Cincinnati is one of the best defensive teams in the country. Almost 100 yards difference disparity between these 2 football teams here at what we call a wholesale price compared to what they've been laying here. I think Cincinnati makes their statement this week.
By the way, Houston will play Cincinnati in the championship game as long as Cincinnati gets there by beating SMU. Houston's won 9 straight. So Holgorsen, after the Texas Tech loss, there were a lot of people who were going, what happened? What happened? This isn't working out. But Houston's won 9 straight, and they're trying to snap a 5-game losing streak tonight when they take on Memphis, who needs a win to be bowl eligible. Thanks to East Carolina and their win last week. Did you say? I was shocked by the decision to go for 2 for Memphis. I was loving the decision because I had East Carolina, because the better team at home going for the 2-point conversion. I was very surprised by that.
Well, I was too, but you know.
And did you see the play?
I didn't see it, but I was told.
The play was just, I'm going to roll one of those. I will roll out, and you're basically only giving me like 1 or 2 options while I'm rolling out. It wasn't like a trick play or this ingenious, wow, I could see what they had it in their back pocket all year. They were just waiting for this chance. It was just, I'm just going to roll out, and he just had to keep, waiting and waiting and waiting. And then he finally just chucked it up. It was just at least have a play that you were waiting to use all season.
It's like improvised on the fly. You're right.
Yeah, didn't like the call, but I definitely didn't understand the call itself. But hey, good job by Mike Houston at East Carolina. So, and they play Cincinnati next week. Mountain West, and this is also the last couple of games we got here. This is a game we're gonna disagree on because I like Utah State. And we both like the job Blake Anderson has done this year. Utah State has won 5 straight. They've covered 4 straight, including the last 3 by a 134-61 margin. They're looking to clinch their first Mountain West Conference championship game since 2013. They've got to win their next 2 games and have Boise State lose once. They've never won a Mountain West Conference championship game. Their last championship game was the 2012 WAC championship. I like Wyoming too. We also like the job that Bowles done there, but their offense is just so bad. They have a good defense. They play Hawaii next week. That's the game that's in their hip pocket to go bowling. This is not. It's only a 5-point spread. It's not 7 or 8. So because it's 5, I feel pretty comfortable Utah State wins the game by 7 or more.
Nobody's been a bigger Blake Anderson fan than I. I loved and I touted this guy when he was at Arkansas State. Did a remarkable job. He comes over here to this program and he revives it again, okay? And putting a stamp on the program. And kudos to him, doing a great job. The thing I don't like about their chances this week is they could lose this game, but next week's game will still be for the division championship. Win this game, it's still going to be next week for the division championship. So what do they have to gain in a football game like this, other than maybe putting things on film that they don't want the opponent to know, risking injury, those types of things here? So I don't see the benefit for Utah State getting in this football game and smashing a Wyoming football team that's really defensively superior in this contest. And as you mentioned, is also a 5-win team that needs one more win. You never know what's going to happen when you get involved with Hawaii. You never know in a situation like that. Not that they're any good, but you never know. But I still don't like those chances because Utah State can lose this game regardless. Next week's game will be for the cheese.
And by the way, Boise will end up their regular season at San Diego State next week. Boise will win this week because they're playing New Mexico. So Utah State's going to need that San Diego State win, and San Diego State has to win their last two in order to clinch an opportunity to play in the championship game. They play UNLV this week. Glad to see UNLV win a couple of games there. Their coach has done a really nice job. We talked about what they've been through this season. They've been competitive in a lot of good football games with pretty decent teams in this conference. And then they finally broke through with a couple of wins. So we'll see whether or not they can keep it close with San Diego State tonight. And meanwhile, as I said, not only is that game tonight, but also the Air Force Nevada game is also tonight. Carson Strong will be in his final home game for Nevada. Another interesting quarterback to keep an eye on for the draft next year. Middle rounds. Okay. Then we've got the UTSA game and the UAB. And UAB came through for me last week against Marshall in the upset role. This is different, and I completely understand the whole they're undefeated, the pressure's on, and all that. I really do. But let's also keep in mind that this season is a complete waste if they lose this football game. A complete waste. Because that means UAB is going to end up winning the division because they they host UTEP next week. Not that UTEP's a pushover, but you get my gist. So,
but they're a pushover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and remember, and I don't care about last week's Southern Miss game. We all know what that was. But this is a team that beats Illinois on the road, Memphis on the road, Western Kentucky on the road. They're at home here. Yes, there's definitely pressure on them. I love UAB in the spot. That's why I liked them last week. But I just think this is UTSA's season. Not because they're undefeated. If anything, maybe that works against them. It's very possible. But I just think that it's about, hey, guys, if we don't win this game, we're probably not going to even represent our championship game. So I think they're going to get it done, clinch the West, and make an appearance in the Conference USA championship game for their first time ever.
Well, the thing that I could make the UAB case for here, Greg, is a point you hit on. They can win this championship by taking UTSA out. Okay, so that's a big incentive for a football team that has been there, done that before, and a coach that knows how to do it. He's been terrific in football games as an underdog. Coming into this particular game here as well. Again, go back to the point you opened up with. I'm going to allude to, yes, a lot of pressure is on UTSA in this football contest here. And I've loved UTSA from the get-go. In our Playbook Preview Guide magazine, we touted them as being the second deepest team in college football with overall experience coming into the season here, and it's really paid off in spades for this football team.
Especially in those roles at that Illinois game. That was a beautiful one. They were up. They were a 10-point dog or something like that in that game, I believe, something like that.
Maybe 8, but yeah, right. But still, they stepped up and they've responded because this team is really a talented football team. I just have to respect Bill Clark, and I have to respect the fact that his football team can win the conference championship with a victory in a game like this. So hence being, I will take the points with you.
And by the way, Western Kentucky, if Western Kentucky wins and Marshall wins this week, Western Kentucky is at Marshall next week. which will decide that division and the team that will go into the championship game. I think Western Kentucky gets the job done this week, but I tell you what, I think Charlotte might actually surprise Marshall because this is the home finale for some really good players that Charlotte has that are going to be no longer with the program after this one, and they're a pretty good team at home, especially as a home dog. And Will Healy's done a nice job at Charlotte, so and Marshall's coming off that. Marshall played that game last week. That hurt him. Not for a division or anything. It was revenge they had on their minds against UAB. That was the team that beat them last year for the championship, and they wanted their revenge, and they were flat, and they were just beat, and they were never really in the game, even though it was a 7-point game late. And they have to feel really dejected about that, and now they're a big favorite on the road against a team everybody expects them to beat. So I think Charlotte's a live dog in that one.
I think the point that I want to make here is this, is that we're going to see an abundance of last home games occurring this week, next week, and we saw some last week, okay? But the point is that because of the way the college football rules were restructured and allowed a lot of these players to come back because of the pandemic, the COVID situation, there's an abundance of teams that are loaded with returning starters. So now they have this 5th game under their belt to come back with in their last home game of the season. And don't be surprised if you do a tally by the end of this football season here and see how well these football teams go into the preview guide that brought back 17 or more starters, how well they did in their last home game of the season.
Okay, and then finally, in the Sun Belt, you have a matchup between, well, one Sun Belt team and not another, but that's Lafayette Liberty. So this is a really cool matchup. This is the type of matchup we'd like to see in a bowl game, to tell you the truth. So it's a 4.5-point spread for Liberty in this one. And Lafayette has won 9 straight since their week 1 loss at Texas. Don't forget they crushed Appalachian State. They're going to be rematched with Appalachian State. As long as Appalachian State beats Troy, they'll clinch with a win, and they'll get the rematch. So that'll be really cool in the Sun Belt. We'll find out if Billy Napier stays or not. I don't think he's going to. I mean, why? I mean, it's time for Billy Napier to. I know he got the contract, and we talked about that, but somebody like LSU should be put, especially since he's an Alabama guy. Stick it to Alabama and give this guy a big contract and have him. But it's probably not going to happen anyway. That's a good game.
Well, like you said, he did receive an contract extension for a lot of money, but you've got a team out there with deep, deep pockets in LSU that is going to sign a coach that they want, and he's the ideal coach, a Louisiana guy, right down the street, if you will, with a terrific pedigree as far as history goes and turning programs around. I'd be surprised if LSU's hire is not Billy Napier. Now, the question I have here is, I don't know if that talk is in the mix right now. I don't know if it's going to bother the program or not. I was a little bit surprised at this line here. I thought it would be a little more like a field goal or less.
True.
There's a lot of respect for Liberty in this game here, and rightfully so. I mean, they've done a great job. Hugh Freeze is terrific in games much like this. I have a real difficult time making a case because I can make cases for both sides in this football game here.
But that's why whenever you can make cases for both sides, I always like taking the dog.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do. Exactly right. Take the dog. Don't
take the money
waste your time.
Too. Just go for
it. Take the dog, right? Because if you can make a case for that dog, that's the path you want to stay on.
And then also independent. Liberty's an independent, but we'll find out if Army blows out UMass. I'm actually surprised the line wasn't 50. UMass is going to get a new coach. And they've lost 4 games this year by more than 38 points. So they've already lost by more than 37 5 times. So they can do it again. Army will play at Liberty, and then they play Navy. Those are the last 2 games? Am I looking at that right?
For
Army? I know they play. Of course they play. By the way, doesn't Navy have that streak of like 19 straight Senior Day wins that was snapped last year? Navy? I think they do.
You're talking about at home, those Senior Day wins.
Yeah, I'm talking about Navy.
Yes.
Yeah, that was like 19 straight? Something like that, right?
I'm not sure. Yeah. I'll double check that.
I saw that in the newsletter. So, yeah, Army after this week will be at Liberty next week, and then they play the big Navy game a couple of weeks later. So Anyway, just figured I'd bring that up because those are good games to watch for Army coming up against Liberty and Navy. But I don't know what kind of final Army kind of stat they have, but that stat by Navy kind of made me a little bit worried for East Carolina because I've been all over East Carolina for like a month and they've covered like 7-8 straight, and I saw that stat about Navy. But last year it was snapped, but the point in the newsletter was a smart one, which there was nobody in the stands.
Correct. When it was snapped.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
that matters because it's senior day.
Right.
It's supposed to be an emotional thing. Now, how can you get up for it when nobody's in the stands? Before I let you go, Mark, I wanted to wrap it up with the NFL, and that is, do you? And we've talked about this pretty much all season, but it's starting to really get serious now. Weeks 8, 9, and 10 in the NFL season, the last 3 weeks, even though it didn't happen last night, but the dog, the favorite has a record of 13, 28, and 1 in the last 3 weeks. This season, 62, 85, and 1. The favorite against the spread. Is this something that we haven't seen in a long time?
Yeah, it's been a long time since we've seen it that lopsided, if you will. And, I'm loving it because I'm a dog lover. And I don't want to see the trend end.
No.
We know the trend's going to end. It's a question of when and how hard it ends. But as long as it's continuing, it ain't broke. We're not going to try and fix it. We're going to focus in on these teams that can fit the bill when it comes to handicapping the National Football League. And more importantly, when you find underdogs that make a good case that can win the game and they're the underdog, you can back them up a little bit with the money line as well.
Yeah, I mean, because this week I could look at obviously Pittsburgh, because that's just Pittsburgh. Even though I'm putting my money where my mouth is, because Watt's out, and I've said it a million times. Watt, to me, I think I even mentioned it to you, is like, to me, I think he's worth 6 points, just like a quarterback. So I'll put my money where my mouth is with him out. But the other games, Jacksonville, why not? You love the job Urban Meyer's done. How can you not? Even Houston, it wouldn't surprise me if they pulled off the upset, because Tennessee has won 7 games against playoff teams from 2020, and now we got to beat Houston. They're not going to come up. They're not going to be up for the game. So I think it's going to happen at least for another week or two. I could still see more upsets, but we all know that once you get to that final 4 games or so in the season, that's when we would expect it to flip, and a lot of those favorites are going to probably start to bury the dogs.
I'm sure they probably will when the dogs have no reason to play and they've got the season packed. But if there's a team on upset alert this week in the National Football League, it would indeed be Houston taking Tennessee out, as you mentioned. Right. Okay. You got Tyrod Taylor with the game under his belt here. Okay. And, you got Tennessee obviously playing down to the level of this opposition after the likes of which they've gone up against.
They have to.
But here's the key in the game. If you look at Tennessee, since Derrick Henry has not been there, although they've won the games, the last 2 games they've been out-yarded by over 100 and 200 yards in both of those football games. That's winning games with smoke and mirrors, and you don't continue to keep doing that, laying double digits against a team that you're likely to play down to their level
They
at.
screwed me last week.
So keep an eye out for that football game.
I had them as a 3-point favorite, my 5-star pick. They're up by 20, and they still win the game, and they couldn't cover 3 because of the 2-point play. It's just, that killed me. But anyway, is there any way to read into then, if you're trying to figure it out, the whole win and cover philosophy? Because all dogs are not winning games. They're obviously doing a great job of covering, but yet you take a look at the old win and we cover percentages. Last year, that was 76%. This year, it's gone higher. It's 82% of the time. If a team in the NFL wins the game, they're covering the game, which it just seems a little bit odd for me, considering all the dogs are doing a good job of covering as well.
Well, which speaks to the fact that there's been dogs that have won the games.
I guess,
as well.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, so that's what adds to the tally here. What you need to do is strip out and just look at the favorites that have won the game and what was their win percentage with just favorites winning the football game. And that's what will be down this year.
And lastly, the road team last year on Thursday Night Football won 9 of the games, 9 and 5. The home team this year is 5 and 5, and now 5 and 6. what happened to the home team's major edge on Thursday Night Football? It's gone. It doesn't matter. It's not, at least for the last year and a half.
Goes to two things, Greg. Number one, the situation involved in the game. How did the teams come into the game? Both sides of the equation. That's one part of it. And number two, who were those teams?
True.
Were they good teams? Were they bad teams?
Night.
Were the other teams? Yeah, exactly right. So, but I got to say, I was really, really surprised at New England winning the game in the manner in which they did. That was an ideal spot for Atlanta to show up in the football game. You had two teams that are off the biggest, widest, opposite end of the poll margins there were in the National Football League. One team wins by 40, the other loses by 40, and you got them as a home underdog taking a touchdown here. I was absolutely blown out that Atlanta did not show up for that football game.
Home team, Monday Night Football this year has won 9 of 10 games, covered 7 of them. And Sunday Night Football has done a complete switch as well. Last year, it was the home team winning 12 of 18. This year, the road team has won 7 of 10 on Sunday Night Football. My point is that the Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football primetime games have completely switched from last year to this year, whereas, like I said, Thursday Night Football has been predominantly the road team. So, again, like you said, a lot of it does, no question, have to do with the matchups and all that kind of stuff. But I just think it's important to note the Thursday night thing because so many people just have it in their heads that, oh, it's just, it kills these teams to go on the road and it's just 3 games and it's just so unfair. Well, apparently it's not unfair to the road team because they're winning a lot of these games. So,
yeah, it's been a little bit of an atypical season this year, with the success of all the underdogs, and Thursday is also playing into that as well. So, does it revert and change and when December rolls around here? It remains to be seen. But I'm going to leave you with that final thought: it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, if you like dogs, keep finding ways to back them and keep looking for those that you think can win the game.
Marc, appreciate it as always. What's the latest with the newsletter?
Newsletter's been on fire this year, Greg, as you know, just having an absolutely outstanding football season here. We've won 67% of all of our best bets for the football season here, having a great year with that. That's available this week online at playbooksports.com, along with our other newsletters, the Midweek Alert and the Totals Tip Sheet. And I just happen to be doing my top college football play of the year this weekend. Ooh, there we go. Look out. Look out. You can check that out for information on that in the newsletter or online at playbooksports.com.
Is that going to be Rutgers beating Penn State outright?
I didn't say the crazy play of the year.
I can only dream. All right. Sounds good. By the way, what's the number that you want to hit every year? 65%? Is that the goal?
Well, no, realistically, I mean, as a handicapper, you'd like to hit 57, 58%.
Really? It's even that low. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's a profit.
Sure.
Okay. And if you make a profit, who complains about
Absolutely.
a profit? But when you can have these exceptional years like we're having with the newsletter this particular year, but to have a 60% season is quite a good feeling to have that kind of a year. Yes.
Absolutely. That's why you get all these crazy marketing ploys about, hey, I'm 90% in 500 games or something like that.
Exactly.
And people don't
right.
get that that's just, when you tell them, hey, 60% is pretty good, they don't believe you. How is 60% any good? I could do 60%. Yeah, okay. You can try to do 60%.
Yeah, you think you can, right.
And what, 5 games for the year? Yeah, okay.
Right.
All right, Marc, we'll talk to you again next week.
Hey, Greg, enjoy the games. Be well and stay safe. Thank you.